One-night stands, having an affair, sticking to just one partner, not being advised, these are all considerations, surprisingly, when you're planning a cruise vacation, though not in the way you might expect, as you're about to discover as I share with you the very best cruise advice that I can give you. If you're new here, welcome aboard. I'm Gary Bembridge, and it's my goal to help make it fun and easy to discover, plan, and enjoy unforgettable cruise vacations. One of the best pieces of advice I have about cruising is to avoid the cruise equivalent of one-night stands, as tempting and as thrilling as they may appear. You're unlikely to find the partner of your dreams on a one-night stand in real life, and that's true in cruising too. Taster cruises are the cruise equivalent of one-night stands. These short one or few night cruises are supposed to let us try out and taste a new cruise line. They are, though, a terrible way to find out what a cruise line is really all about. First of all, the people who are regulars to the cruise line don't really go on these short taster cruises. You won't find the usual passengers and the mix. At best, they're people like you and me just checking the line out. But much more likely, as they're usually priced really low, it's people seeking a cheap short break or a party time, and they would never normally go on the cruise line. We actually stopped taking our mothers on these taster cruises because we found that even on sedate lines like Cunard, the taster cruises were getting too loud, raucous, and pretty untypical for them to actually enjoy. Also, bear in mind that the program is designed to show a kind of hyped up image of the cruise line. It's a sales pitch. They're going to be showcasing the very best parts, like the best production shows, the best quiz shows, the best cooking displays, the best whatever. I've even been on one taster cruise where I discovered the guest entertainers book, which were a fantastic high energy drag show. They're never ever booked on their regular sailings. They only had this act on because they felt it would be more entertaining for that cruise than their usual entertainment, which says everything. So the most I get from these taster cruises is to see the ship, to see the cabins. You can't judge what the cruise experience will be. You can't tell what it's going to feel like until you're on a cruise line cruising between ports with the usual passengers. So instead of going on a taster cruise, save time and save money up towards going on a proper cruise and do what I do. Watch cruise vlogs on YouTube. So for example, I wanted to know if Disney Cruise Line was the right line for me going as an adult. So instead of booking myself onto one of those little taster cruises, I went effectively on a Disney cruise by watching vlogs, and I specifically watched Sean and Steph in real life. Now, unfortunately, the rather wonderful Sean has subsequently passed away, but through their amazing day-by-day vlogs, I saw what Disney is about, and that helped me make up my mind. And based on that, I actually booked my first Disney cruise, but I got to experience a true cruise through the vlogs. Have you ever gone back to an ex? In my dating days, like most people, I did. But the things that annoyed and drove me wild soon returned. The same is true with cruise lines, and I've learned that the hard way. The first cruise line that I ever went on was P&O Cruises. It was the only line that I used and cruised with for many, many years. For me, that was what cruising was all about. Now, because I'd always wanted to do a transatlantic, I eventually went on Cunard and suddenly realized there is so much more out there, and so much more that I found was so much better suited to me than P&O Cruises. I stopped using P&O Cruises. We went our separate ways. Now, P&O, I noticed, had been changing. They'd been doing things differently. They'd introduced loads of new ships. So I decided, post-pandemic, to give them a try again. Now, unfortunately, I found it was just like going back to an ex in real life. The spark wasn't there. The things I didn't like were still there. It just absolutely and utterly didn't work. I found out, and I believe very strongly, that once you fall out of love with a cruise line, you shouldn't go back, because you're likely to find that the things that weren't right for you in the first place still aren't right, as I found out with P&O Cruises. So the question is then, is sticking with what works always the right thing to do? After switching to Cunard, I was enjoying the ceremony, the style, the formality, but I did keep thinking maybe I was missing out. Cunard were dependable, and they were my dependable partner. But I was tempted to try something exotic, something different, something totally not my type, something a little bit wild and exotic, as I said. Now for me, that was Costa Cruises. They had flashy new ships. They sounded very Italian, very exciting, very relaxed, very informal, the opposite of Cunard. So I headed off, and it really wasn't for me. It just wasn't the experience I wanted. I was attracted by the glitz, the glamour, the sexiness, the difference of it all, but just found the ships too brash, too in your face, the program too boisterous, too holiday camp style for me. So I wasted my time and money having my little fling and little affair. It just wasn't me. It didn't have the experience I wanted. It didn't have the kind of entertainment I wanted. It didn't have the food options I wanted. It just wasn't right for me. So having that left field affair just really didn't work out. People often ask me why I've never been on Carnival, because I know for all they offer and do really well for their audience, it's just not for me. That fun ship experience is not the sort of thing that I want, so I exclude them rather than risk my time and my money. That's also why, for example, I do relatively limited amounts of trips on lines like Norwegian Cruise Line and Royal Caribbean, because fundamentally they're not my kind of cruise experience. They are big resort ships, which are just kind of not what I enjoy. Both of those, of course, do some amazing and interesting things like go-karts, water show spectaculars, ice skating, water slides, huge array of specialty dining, but I go cruising for different reasons. Trying something different just because it sounds very exciting, brasher, bigger, it's got lots more new attractions, new ship features. Resist that, I recommend. Think very carefully about it. That thrilling affair may not be totally satisfying, as I did with my Costa. I could have better spent my time and money without getting distracted by things that weren't fundamentally important to me. So what should you do if you're tempted about trying something new? Do what I do now and use the cruise forums on sites like Cruise Critic and Facebook groups set up by fans of the line. They're really, really good and excellent for asking questions like, I'm this type of person, I like these kind of things, how would I get on this line? Would it be for me? Now, people in those are more than happy to give you their personal insights and experiences. For example, I found this really helpful when I was looking at going on Viking Ocean for the very first time. I found a We Love Viking UK Cruises group. There's also a We Love Viking US Cruises group. And I went in there and I started talking to people, and that really helped me decide Viking was right for me. The trip was a really good, great success. People often rush to try a new ship because it is new and it's the latest thing, without really thinking about the line and what's important. And I've stopped doing that. So because people, are often really surprised when I'm not jumping on the latest ship, like when P&O Iona launched or Carnival Mardi Gras started sailing. And this is the reason why a flash new ship is no substitute for a more meaningful trip on a line that better suits me. Does that mean I recommend you stick to one line once you've found one that you like and just not take any risk at all? In the real world, of course, sticking with one partner is highly valued and it's the right thing to do when it comes to dating. However, what about in cruising? I had a revelation on this through all the experiences that I've spoken about so far, the one-night stands, the affairs, all that kind of stuff. In the real world, what I realized is there's always someone I'd much rather go to a big rave party with, a different person I'd much rather go hiking with, or to a fancy restaurant with, or there's somebody else who might be better company to go to the theatre or something cultural with. So that's why when I'm asked, what is your favorite cruise line? I find it very difficult to answer because I learned through my P&O and Cunard experience that only having one faithful partner is probably not the actual way to go when it comes to cruising. I have now a few lines that meet my key needs and I choose which one to use and which one to go with depending entirely on what I'm doing. So for example, when I go to Alaska, I prefer to go on either Princess or Holland America. Holland America have been cruising there for something like 70 years, Princess for over 50 years. Those are the experts in the area. They get the best berths, they get into Glacier Bay, they have fantastic relationships in all the ports, they have their expertise, they have Alaska kind of in their veins. This is why my next Alaska trip, for example, is booked on Princess. If I'm going on an expedition cruise, for example, to Antarctica or the Arctic, I value and rate having an incredible expedition team as really, really key. Now, I found those on Silversea to be absolutely outstanding on my trips there. Now, although they're expensive versus some alternative options, they're always my first choice for expeditions. And so, for example, for my first Galapagos trip, I booked with them. I'm not going on one of the other cruise lines that I also like for other types of cruising. If I'm looking to cross the Atlantic, I will always gravitate back towards Cunard and do the full traditional transatlantic rather than kind of a repositioning cruise, which of course is much cheaper and there are many more options. For me, the whole sense of experience on the Cunard Queen Mary 2 is part of what I want to do when I cross the Atlantic. So that's why I would choose that line, but I wouldn't choose Cunard for other trips. I've tried them on different trips, and there are other cruise lines that perhaps are better to do the Mediterranean in or the Caribbean in. So I don't just default to one particular cruise line. So if I am going to the Caribbean or the Mediterranean, I focus on premium mid and small size lines that cater for me, like Celebrity, Holland America, or much smaller like Oceania and Azamara, because they tend to have the most interesting itineraries in the Caribbean. For me, it's not about rigidly sticking to one line, but I like to have a small select choice group of favorites that I then take based on who will be the best and the most fun to take me where I'm going. I meet many, many people on cruises, which is fantastic, but they will only go on, say, Princess or Seabourn or Regent Seven Seas or Celebrity, and they will never try another line, which is great. It's one option. However, when you're traveling to many different parts of the world, different lines have different expertise, different experiences, different ports of call, different relationships that could provide a better experience. So I feel that a small, select group of loyal kind of friends that you can have a great time with feels like the right way to go. Now, as you think about that, why don't you watch this video of the 9 best cruises in the world you should be doing and taking, because they sell out really fast, with the one that has the most bragging rights. Find out which it is, and I'll see you over there.